Are you a determined and ambitious woman entrepreneur seeking to elevate your selling skills? Then I have a training for you. It's called How Any Woman Can Confidently Close Any Deal in a One-on-One Sales Call in Any Business or Industry. In this training, you'll be shown 3 techniques that you can immediately apply to your consultation calls and improve your close rate. This is a live training with me, and there's going to be an opportunity to ask questions. So come get yourself registered right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/close. Easy, right? Okay, I'm going to see you there.
Do sales conversations make you feel awkward or pushy? It's time to ditch the outdated salesy strategies. Your guide, Nikki will show you how to combine kindness with selling skills to meet your prospects where they are, and in the process, how to up-level your influence and income. Learn how to earn business easily and effortlessly. Here's Nikki.
Welcome to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. Today's episode is a solo episode, and I'm going to be sharing with you about how I got scammed with a new, I'm putting this in quotation marks, sales strategy that's out there. And I want to talk about it in case you're finding yourself in these situations, or if you're finding yourself in a situation where somebody is pitching you on using this strategy as a way to close business. I'm going to share from my perspective with my 25 plus years of sales experience that my personal belief is that this strategy is bad business. It is absolutely not a way to build relationship and rapport with long-term customer clients. And I don't recommend it, but yet I found myself on the receiving end of it. So I want to share my story because also I think sometimes it's helpful to know that we all get scammed. We all find ourselves in positions that are like, oh, that didn't feel good to me. And I like to comment on those so that you're aware that you don't have to tolerate this type of approach, this type of sales approach. You can shut it down, hopefully faster than I did. We'll see. All right. So here's what happened. I am a frequent guest on podcasts. Podcast guesting is a major form of marketing my work. So I guest on a lot of podcasts. It's pretty common. And because I guest on a lot of podcasts, I often get requests that are out. So like those requests come to me. People ask me if I will be a guest on their show because they've heard me on another show. And I tend to want to say yes to almost all of those requests. Now, because I have a team that pitches me on podcasts, they also do a great job of vetting these types of requests that come out of the blue. And so unless I know the person, which oftentimes I do, but sometimes I don't, I'll send it to my team and ask them to vet, like, is this a legit podcast? Because this new podcasting as a sales strategy is where I'm going with this. People are starting podcasts or pretending to have a podcast, frankly. And it's their way to get on a call with somebody that they can't get on the call any other way, so they can pitch the person. So what happened was a request came through my email. Somebody had referenced a podcast that I had been on recently and said that they were launching their podcast and asked me if I would come on as a guest. So my team did their kind of vetting and came back and said, this is a pre-launch podcast, so we don't have any numbers to know whether or not this is, a well-listened to podcast. However, everything about it looks legit. So I say yes to being on the podcast. So what happens next is that gets scheduled. It's on my calendar. I get up in the morning, I look at my calendar. Usually I look at it the day before, but look at it and go, oh, I have a podcast this morning. So typically I listen before I go on somebody's podcast. I listen to at least one episode. That's usually what I do when I'm getting ready in the morning, is I'm listening to somebody's podcast that I'm about to be interviewed on, so that I have the potential to be a somewhat decent guest and be prepared. This particular podcast wasn't available for me to listen to, so I'm going in blind. So go click on the link on my calendar. We're scheduled to chat at 9. 9:05 rolls around. There's no host. So I send an email to the host, just making sure that they're okay and asking if we're still, going to do the podcast because I'm waiting on Zoom. So about 10 minutes after the hour, so now the host is 10 minutes late, somebody else logs on to the Zoom account and says, "Oh, I'm a co-host and there was a there was an emergency that the host can't be here, but I'm going to record it on their behalf." And I was like, "Okay." And they said, "But, I need to set up the equipment." So now I'm waiting. So they're already 10 minutes late. Now I'm waiting for them to set up their gear to start the podcast recording. So we start, I don't know, 15 or 17 minutes after the hour. And I'm rolling with it because, stuff happens. So I'm fine. They start the podcast. The person starts the podcast, starts asking some questions, not really sales related. They feel pretty formulaic, not really getting any information. And about 12 minutes into the podcast, they kind of abruptly end the interview. So in my mind, I'm thinking, did I do a bad job? Like I was trying my best to answer their questions, but it just felt like there was no flow at all to the questions or to their interaction with me. But I was trying to give grace, thinking, well, they're not the normal host, so I'll just do what I can as the guest. And so as soon as they stopped recording, this person that was, stepping in as the co-host of this podcast that doesn't actually exist, who knows if it ever will. I kind of doubt it. And if it does end up existing, I doubt my episode will ever air because it's not very good. But they immediately start pitching me on a service. And I said, "Oh, I already have a company that I work with, so I'm not looking to outsource that to anybody else." And then the person wanted to know what I'm paying the company that is providing the service for me, which already now that question completely causes the hair on the back of my neck to stand up. I find it to be such an incredibly rude question to ask somebody what they're paying somebody else for the service that they provide. Now, I'm not opposed to you getting that information, but asking it in the way of like, "Well, what do you pay them?" Like, it's none of your business. You shouldn't ask that question. And if you are going to ask the question, then here's how I would advise that you do it. You say, "We charge XYZ for our service. Is that competitive to what you're paying now?" You should be willing to put your price out there if you're asking somebody to share what they're paying for something. And if you're not willing to do that, don't ask that question. And especially don't ask it of me. I take offense to it. So I'm immediately offended now that this person is like asking me what I pay somebody else. It's not their business. And I haven't even given them permission. So I end up ending the call and I immediately start thinking like, okay, this is a scam. First of all, it's a pre-launch podcast. So they probably, who knows if they'll ever launch it. I doubt they will. Although I do know because I've been on a few of these podcasts where that is their strategy. Get somebody on your podcast, bombard them with a million emails before they come on the podcast of telling them all about you and all of your services and telling them how to be prepared. And then at the end, once you stop recording, then you go into a hard pitch. And I actually know somebody who went through the person I'm thinking of went through their program, started to launch the podcast, realized this was so out of alignment with her whole philosophy around relationships and how to do business that she ended up spending a ton of money. She paid a ton of money to go through this person's program, spent a ton of money to get her podcast set up, and then realized she couldn't launch it because it wasn't in alignment with how she does business. And so to go this hard pitch, like, ugh, it made me feel sick to my stomach when she was explaining it to me. So she abandoned her podcast. and it never got launched, which is such a shame because she has so much to offer the world. So I'm not opposed to using your podcast as a platform to build relationships. I'm not opposed to using a podcast as a platform to talk with prospective clients, but everybody should be on the same page. If somebody is surprised at the end of a podcast recording that you're going into hard pitch mode, you're out of alignment. You're out of integrity. You've missed a step. Now, I vote with my wallet, and I hope you do too. I pray that you do, actually. I don't want these people to make money doing this type of selling. It's bad business because it leaves a bad taste in somebody's mouth when they're like, I thought I was coming on here to be a guest and be of service, but actually I was just coming on here for you to waste 25 minutes of my time so you could then pitch me. That's annoying. I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but if you have on your website right now a way for people to schedule a call with you, and you get on a call with somebody that pretends they want to be a client, and then when you get on the call with them, they actually go into pitch mode and start pitching you, that whole like bait and switch type of mentality. I am so anti this, and I hope you are as well. And here's the thing, do not be afraid to hang up on these people, which is what I did to this guy. Like, I ended the call right away. As soon as he went into that, like, how much do you pay them? And I was like, that is none of your business. I'm done with this conversation. And I ended the call. And again, I'm sure my podcast will never air. And if it does air, I hope he hears this. Honestly, I don't care if he does. It's bad business the way you approached me. It's bad business to make somebody feel like, what's going on right now? If you don't have permission to put an offer in front of somebody, you really shouldn't. So what could he have done different? Well, one, he could have said at the end, we offer this service. Would that be something you'd be willing to spend just a few minutes to chat with me about? Gotten my permission. And if I said yes, then he could have said, asked me some questions, asked me, could have said, again, shared about what their pricing was, and then asked me if that was competitive to what I'm paying. That question would have worked. But you don't just start pitching. It's like showing up and word vomiting all over somebody. It just doesn't feel good, doesn't leave them feeling good, and it definitely leaves a bad taste in their mouth about you. So I'm sharing my story so that you know. I actually shared this in the Sales Maven Society the day that it happened. And a lot of the responses that I got were people were like, thank you for sharing this. I'm sorry this happened to you. But also somebody had shared, like, I hope you're going to share this with a broader audience because we all want to know that we're not the only ones out there getting scammed and having these types of situations where people just waste your time. And your time is valuable. It's the one thing you can't make more of. It's the one thing you can't get back. So do not reward this behavior, and do not be afraid to hang up on these people, to end these calls, to block them in their emails, all of it, because it's just not good business and you deserve better. And they need to learn how to do better. And when you stop rewarding them by saying yes because you feel pressured, or having these conversations and allowing it to go on, they will have to change or they'll go out of business. And either way is a win for all of us. So I hope that there was something useful for you in hearing my story today about being scammed. And if this is approach that somebody is teaching you or has taught you to do, I will say, if it's working, keep doing it. But my guess is it's not working. Otherwise, you would never be listening to my podcast, because it's not at all in alignment with what I teach. So you can build strong relationships. You can ask permission. You can phrase your questions in a way that lands softly to the other person so it doesn't leave them feeling pinched or feeling like, I don't know why this conversation is happening. People should never be surprised about a sales conversation. So I wish you continued success. Please do sales better. We all can do better, right? And we can demand better. So wishing you continued success. Thanks for listening. Take care and have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.
Are you ready to increase your confidence in your sales conversations? I have a gift for you that is going to show you exactly how to do that. It is my Closing the Sale ebook. It's all about leveling up your confidence, giving you language to use, how to seamlessly move somebody through the sales process. And you can get it right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/Maven. Go grab it.